There's always that second pause when I'm trying to figure out whether it's actually recording or not. Okay, so Swiss Highland, little bit of a disappointment, unfortunately. So we'll move on to the next Swiss one that I have that technically isn't Swiss, even though it's marketed as Swiss. This one is called Orma, and this is what you could probably call a boutique whiskey. It's a new whiskey release that has kind of epitomizes quirky and modern and funky and everything like that. The business is run by two guys, a guy called Pascal Mitter, who works in IT security, and another guy called Rinaldo Willi. I'm presuming you pronounce his surname differently, but I'm English, so Willi's funny to say. So Rinaldo Willi works in a business, in fact I think he might own it, where they take dead bodies, they take your remains and turn them into diamonds. So already we're kind of going down the path of this is a little bit weird and quirky. Even though it says it's Swiss whiskey, it's actually distilled in a distillery called Telsa, which is in Lichtenstein, which is here. Now Lichtenstein, I didn't even know where it was until I started doing the research for this. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little country, barely even a country, sandwiched between Switzerland and Austria. And the Telsa distillery, bang on the border of Liechtenstein and Switzerland, and they distill at this Telsa distillery, and then they transfer the casks somewhere in the Alps. I couldn't find it on a map, I couldn't find where it was. It's somewhere in the Alps, and it's halfway up the Alps, and there is essentially, they're calling it the highest whiskey warehouse in the world, because it's up a mountain. Now supposedly, because of the fluctuations in climate, particularly sort of through the Alps in summer months, it gets very, very warm winds, and they claim that the angel share is actually quite considerable because of the humidity that actually goes through the valleys through these winds. So they lose quite a large amount, but there is a counterclaim that because of the warmth, the whiskey's interacting with the wood more, because you've got more kind of going through the wood, you've got more being lost, but you've got more interacting with the wood, and therefore it's maturing at a quicker rate than if it was just lying dormant in a fairly temperate climate. So it's a bit like Indian whiskey has this argument that because it's warmer and it's 3 years in cask in India is the equivalent of 10 to 12 in Scotland. It's all, whether that's true or not we don't know, but their argument for this whiskey is that even though it's only say 3 to 4 year old, it tastes a lot older. Now again, was at the Newcastle Whisky Festival, was on my stand. I didn't try it at the time. I'm very much looking forward to this, more because of the story around it than potentially the whiskey itself. Here is a picture of the bottle, which looks absolutely gorgeous. It didn't have a cork, it was actually a glass plug that held it together with a kind of plastic seal just around the edge, but it looked really funky. Now here's a picture of the logo. Now Orma is a Romanish word. Now this is a kind of dialect that's spoken by 20,000 people in a particular corner of Switzerland, which is where this Rinaldo Willi comes from. Maybe Vili or Wiley or whatever, but it's Willi, where he comes from, and he speaks it. Now Orma means soul in Romanish, and their logo is a goat. But as you can see, the way that they've designed the logo, it looks like a number 8. And this is where we get into Dan Brown territory as well, because the whiskey is bottled at 44%, and 4 plus 4 is 8. Now if we zoom in a little bit to the logo, you can see where it says Orma, and if we then turn it upside down, it then starts to look a little bit familiar. And if we zoom in once more, we'll see that if you turn it upside down, the M and the A, the way that they've written it, actually upside down becomes a V111, which in Roman numerals is 8. So you've got the logo of the goat that is a mirror image so that the horns make it look like an 8. You've got the 4 plus 4. It's like a proper kind of conspiracy theory type thing. Now, at the time when I was doing the research on this, I wondered whether this was something specific, whether it was something special, whether once the whiskey reaches an 8-year-old, that's the end of days and the world's going to end. But it turns out that they want to be looking at the Asian market, and that's where they want to focus. And 8 is a very, very important number in a lot of countries in Asia. So that's really why they're kind of pushing it. So it sounds like, rather cynically, it's just purely marketing, but it was a really good story to kind of show people during the festival, to be able to say, right, it's 44%. The problem was every time I was trying to turn the bottle upside down to show them the label, I had to be really careful that the seal was properly secure, otherwise I'd be pouring whiskey all over my hand. So it's matured in the Alps, and they use Oloroso sherry casks to mature it. So it's probably pick that up. You can see it's a pretty dark whiskey, and if I show you it compared to the Swiss Highland, if I can get my arms out of the way, this is the Orma that I'm moving around now, and you can see it's quite considerably darker. Now this went down really, really well with the people at the festival, so I am hoping that the whiskey itself is as good as the bottle and the story behind it. And there's some really rich dark fruit on there. I'd say it's first fill Oloroso sherry cask as well, because it's really rich and really full on. Lovely sweetness to it. Lovely kind of plums, damsons, raisins, sultanas, currants, that really rich fruitcakey feel. There's a very slight petrol-y tang to it as well though, just on top of it, and it just lightens everything. Not unpleasant petrol tang, because sometimes it can be, but this is... Yeah, this has been, these are fruits that have been soaked in alcohol and left in a pan with a view of making Christmas cake. It's that kind of alcoholic-y tang that if you walked in a kitchen and it had been sat for ages, you'd smell it in the air. They're kind of like stewed fruits, but stewed with kind of like pure alcohol. There's not a huge amount on the palate, weirdly. Kind of in the dead centre of my palate, there's nothing at all. It's all around the edge. And there is sweetness there, but it's not as rich as I was expecting it to be from the nose. There's not a great amount of finish. It's nice and it's pleasant, but there's just not a huge amount to it. A little bit more on that time. And that was a little bit more of alcoholic burn, 44% as well, so it's not massively powerful. But again, outside of that obvious alcohol burn, not a great deal. There is some nice fruitiness to it, but it's not particularly deep. It's not particularly rich. Again, the finish, not a huge amount. It's There is something there, but there's not a great deal. There is dark fruits. There is the obvious Oloroso sherry influence, but it's just a little bit wishy-washy. It's such a shame, because I was hoping if it just ramped everything up a notch, it would be fantastic. It would be kind of bourbon-esque type dark fruits and sweetness and richness and caramel and that sort of feel, and not the caramel colouring, actual kind of caramel and toffee. But it's slightly watered down. I wonder if maybe if they released it, say 46%, that might help a little bit, almost as though they've actually diluted it slightly too much. But that's such a shame. That really is such a shame. It's like there is a whole batch of flavours, and they've just trimmed a bit off the bottom, and they've just left kind of the remnants of really good flavours that I personally really like in a whiskey. So there's all these kind of indications of it could taste like this, and there could be some of this, and there could be some of that, but there's just not enough of it. It's not giving me what I'm looking for, particularly on the nose. If the palate followed through on what the nose was promising, it would be absolutely stunning. You're going to get lost in cocktails, but as a kind of drinking whiskey, if it was one that you just wanted to drink, to be honest, with the packaging that it's got, it would probably go down really well, because I think it's one that you could have on a shelf and people would look at it and go, wow, that looks absolutely fantastic, can I try some? And they'd drink it and go, yes, it's very pleasant. They're not going to be wowed by it, but they'd go, do you know what, actually, considering how good the bottle looks, it's a pretty decent whiskey. And you could drink it and you could finish off the bottle and you'd be absolutely happy. But you're not really going to be wowed by it, and you're not really going to be, oh, this is absolutely the best whiskey I've ever had. And to be honest, once you've got one bottle and it looks nice enough when it's empty on the shelf, I'm not sure whether you'd be tempted to go back for another one. It's a shame that, because I really, really wanted that to be good. And it's not bad, it's just not that good. Right, done. That's another 2 down. And I shall see you at the next one. Cheers.